Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Limitless MD. I'm your host, Vikram Ryan. Today, I have a good friend and an amazing coach, Jessie Mahoney. She came from the world of pediatrics, really took care of patients for many years, but really had an epiphany that, hey, there's something more out there. Got into coaching herself and then realized, hey, this is a calling. And she went really from being a phenomenal physician to being a phenomenal facilitator of powerful discussions, powerful retreats, and powerful transformations in the physician world.
What if you could reclaim hours of free time each week, create legacy building wealth, and devote more energy to your passion projects without giving up on your career as a life-saving MD? Dr. Vikram Raya is a functional cardiologist, high-performance coach, and real estate expert. Is here to give you the tools, strategies, and solutions you need to transform your life, unlock your limitless potential, and achieve greatness, all while freeing up your precious time. Welcome to Limitless MD. Let's dive in.
So, Jessie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's get right into it. Everyone talks about high performance, and there's a lot of high performance physicians out there. A lot of doctors are really achieving real estate goals, the number of doors, as you mentioned. People are trying to achieve financial goals, time freedom goals. They want to practice medicine on their own terms. Perhaps they're going to pivot out of traditional medicine into locums or telemedicine or something interesting, and or maybe they're going to leadership. But what is the why, do you think, that makes them want to do that? And in the green room, we're talking about something very interesting. You said if they don't like the journey, what makes you think they're going to like the destination? Which I found that was a mic drop.
Yes. And I think that's actually what I see. And I think what I coach on more, like I'm thinking you're a high performance coach, and I consider myself sort of a mindfulness. It's not that performance isn't necessary, but it's the performance is there for a purpose. What do we want from it? And so we are all exceptional high performers, and we can optimize more and more and more, right? We're really good at that. But then what's the purpose of it? And what are you really wanting out of your life? And so I think we have to figure out, number one, the why of why is the high performance? Why do we want financial freedom? What is it that we're looking for? And the way that I like to coach on that is to think about how you want to feel in life, because we
Mm.
pretty much know how we want to feel. We don't know whether that's 100 doors or financial freedom, because I see a lot of people who work really hard to get there, and then they're there and they're still not satisfied.
Mm.
And so part of that is we're trained to not be satisfied in medicine, right? If we were easily satisfied, we wouldn't do this.
So
um,
I want to
yeah,
unpack that.
yeah,
You
yeah,
said something that really is riveting. Like you said,
yeah,
hey, we're trained not to feel satisfied,
yep,
not to feel happy. Can you
yeah.
unpack that?
Yeah, well, so if we were satisfied, we wouldn't do all the things they ask us to do in residency. If we were satisfied, if I had been a satisfied pediatrician, I wouldn't have been chief of the department. I wouldn't have been chief of wellness. I wouldn't have given them months and years of free labor, because we're always thinking that there's something more, that we need to be something more, to give something more, and we put it in this lens of either service or contribution, or that's better. Like we're trained to think more is better. And we're trained to think that if you're satisfied, like if you rest, that everyone else will leapfrog you, right? They'll get whatever the leadership role is, or they'll get the reward, or they'll get the job, or they'll get the whatever it might be. And so I spent a whole year working on being satisfied, and I'm
Wow.
still working on it. But
So,
it
so,
was a
so what do you mean by
direct
that? Was it a whole
thought.
year
Yeah.
where you just decided to do things
practice
that, yeah.
practice being satisfied. Actually, it wasn't even doing things, it was doing the same things and enjoying them, because I have made all these pivots and I realized that like I'm really there where I wanted to be, doing something I love. And it's actually not at all financial freedom. In fact, it's probably less financial freedom than I had in my golden handcuff job, and I love it. But my brain was always looking at, what can I do better? How can I do things more? What my husband tells me, we live on this beautiful farmhouse property where I do retreats, and we would walk around at night and I would point out all the things that we still need to do. Like, this place is beautiful. Why are you always telling us what we need to do? Like, that's the performance optimization. And you can even hear when I talk about it, like it's just this energy suck. And so I had to really practice noticing the beauty right in front of you, noticing
Mm.
the things that I have that I wanted, right? We just move ahead to the next goal, or how can I optimize for something? And I think this something is the contentment and the satisfaction and the
I
peace.
I think Jesse, I think yeah, it's the physicians, and I'm guilty of this too. It says we
Yeah.
move the goalpost every time.
Yep. Yep.
So we never give ourselves an opportunity to celebrate and be victorious and enjoy the win. And we're always off to the next race, like you said.
Well, and what I noticed, you're going to laugh at this, but my year of being satisfied, I did more in my business than I ever did. I built more programs.
Yeah.
I was much more, I won't say much more successful, but like I actually had this like creative, level of genius that was just everything I offered, people were interested in. And I think to recognize that from that place of like contentment, not having to be something you're not, number one, it's magnetic to other people, clearly, but it feels good. And I think that the products and the energy and the things that come from that are actually often better than the things that come from, I'm going to do my miracle morning, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. Like we're so comfortable in and that's all we know. And so learning this other way, boy, it was really uncomfortable to be satisfied and content.
You know,
It's no longer.
yeah, Jesse, it reminds me of, where is your energy coming from? Is it coming from hustle energy or flow energy?
Yes.
And it sounds like you really tapped into flow energy. And so
Yep.
with that said, I really want to unlock something for the physicians and the successful people who listen to our podcast. Help me understand how they can at least create a microcosm of flow or contentment or peace in their lives. And it may not be, 24/7, Monday through Friday, but maybe they'll have pockets of it where they'll cultivate it or they'll find space for that. Can you help me with that?
Yeah, I love that. And I want to repeat what you said. It will not be 24/7.
Right.
And it's not supposed to be. But I see people feeling like they failed. Like I am not in flow or at peace 24/7 at all. It's you want all the different varieties. But how I see people unlock it is a couple of things. I would say the things that get in the way of unlocking it that we as physicians in particular have to work on. And one is your nervous system, because if you're in fight or flight or have a revved up sympathetic nervous system, or in sympathomimetic storm or cortisol bath,
Yes.
there's not really flow there. There's push to there, there's reactivity, it's energetically draining. So it's not a flow state, and it's not a energizing state. And so the flow state is actually a sort of at least energy neutral, but often it actually energizes you as well.
Mm.
And so that comes through, I use the word practicing mindfulness, but loosely, right? It can be meditating, it can be forest bathing. I do a lot of sound bathing, sound healing at my retreats, because I find for physicians whose brain is always going, that's one of the ways you can turn it off. And then they can experience what it feels like, and then they're able to practice it in other realms. Some people call it breath work. I would actually say just breathe. Like physicians, actually, we hold our breaths. When I became a yoga teacher, I noticed in my pediatric practice that I literally held my breath all day. Like I would hold it and then take a breath, but it was not a natural, relaxed breathing pattern. And I noticed as a yoga teacher, I would go to doctor conferences, and everybody there, even at the break, is holding their breath and has this tightness in their breathing. And so if we can literally learn how to breathe again, you don't have to have your 4-7-8 breaths or your box breathing or this, like breathe in and out on purpose, and adding to that, exhale a little longer than inhale. Like I
Mm.
believe in like not overcomplicating it. If you start somewhere, one of my, I'll call her a mentor, she talks about literally ridiculously unambitious goals. And so the idea would be like improve your breathing 1%, 5%.
Mm.
It then snowballs, right?
Yes.
And like being satisfied is kind of a ridiculously unambitious goal. But what happens with it is the world opens up, if that makes sense. So the nervous system is the first one. The other thing is that you really can't be satisfied from a like negative energy balance. So if you're depleted below empty, which many of us in healthcare are, you have to have some energy balance. And so, Maslow's hierarchy of needs would say like your basic needs have to be met. But for many of us, they're not. Like sleep is not met, or and nutrition, if you're working in the hospital, is crappy, right? And so really noticing how to get those needs met, like fresh air and sunshine and time with your family. I think you have them in different big buckets, but the idea is you have to have a positive energy balance. And so noticing how you can do that. I think we often think, I need a year sabbatical to do that. But I need little things, right?
Yeah, but
Breathing,
probably like,
mindfulness.
a weekend,
Yeah.
you can probably get
Yeah.
reset, right? And
Yes.
so it's the infrastructure of a
Yeah.
physician's recovery and wellness,
Yeah.
almost like
Yeah.
it's their well-being infrastructure that you're asking them to fortify.
Yeah. Well, and I would say you can do it even within your day. Like I used to think it was all about time management. I don't think it's about that at all anymore. I think it's about energy management. And if
Yes.
you give yourself little pockets, so you like when I get below empty, that's where I'm reactive. That's where I go into all my old unhelpful thought patterns and make things harder, right? So really looking at your day and noticing where your energy naders are and working on that, that can help you. You really won't be able to feel satisfied or content if you have a negative energy balance. The other thing is being kind to yourself. So self-compassion
Mm,
is the sort of word for it, which I think just means not always saying what's wrong with me, how come I haven't done this, not always pushing yourself to do more, believing that where you are is pretty darn good. Noticing like what you've done well, because from that energy, that's the contentment energy.
yes.
That's where the creativity and the curiosity and the energy and the excitement and the engagement come. So you really need all of those. And then I think the last bit is the intention, which was I'm going to be practice being satisfied for a year. Because if your brain doesn't have an intention, like neuroscience says, it'll go to the negative. It goes to what you haven't done. And so your intention really needs to set it's your reticular activating system to filter things through this intention of, oh, that's beautiful. Oh, this is a satisfying lunch. Oh, this is, and part of it is, I won't say faking it till you make it, but it's telling yourself what you want to notice. It's paying attention on purpose, which is part of mindfulness. Again, and they're
So,
really actually all part of mindfulness if you want to
yeah. So
put them
let's
in a
let's
lump.
let's go back and just try to quantify or
Yeah.
catalog
Yeah.
what you just
Yeah.
said. It's
Yeah.
like if I can remember, you were saying one is that physician well-being or that physician health wellness infrastructure. Another one I heard was sort of compassion and a grace for yourself.
Mhm.
Another was really sort of micro goals or ridiculously unambitious goals,
I love
and
that.
and
Yeah.
and and,
Yeah.
and just falling in love with that. And um, I guess the other one is just maintaining, controlling your central nervous system, like in a way that regulating it. It's like learning to regulate your nervous system because once the limbic center and the amygdala get hijacked,
Yeah.
then we fall into the saboteurs, the gremlins in our heads, and then the other one, last one that I heard was energy management. Right? It's not life management, it's not time management, it's energy management, which
Yeah.
I think I think that's the highest form of currency for a physician.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think then you get to contentment, which is what I see as the why for most people, right? And even from there, you really have the clarity of what matters most. You're not like artificially creating these things that you want to, you just know it when you're in
Yeah.
that state. And then the energy flows because we were talking about that flow state, right? That's where you have this sort of reconnection to your inner knowing and what really matters to you. And so you can get clear on the why of all the high performance, right? What's the purpose of it? What is bringing you what you're hoping for? And what is,
What do you think, if you had to be honest, and you've coached so
yeah,
many
yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
and you've had all these retreats, you've been able to sort of be an observer to these physician brains.
Yeah.
And, I mean, your name of your coaching practice is Pause and Presence Coaching. So when you pause and you're present with these docs,
Yeah.
what's really going on inside their brains?
Well, I think the first one is that there's something wrong with them, that they haven't figured it out, or a bit of that sort of compare and despair. How do I keep up? Am I doing it right? Um,
So
and
this
then
is
there's,
this is a common theme. You're saying
yeah, I think it's
physicians in
all
general
spread.
compare and despair. They're always thinking about like how other people view them, how they
Yeah,
view themselves. Okay.
yeah. And do they measure up? And like,
Mm,
is there something about them that they need to fix?
Yeah.
And so they sort of take themselves on as a fix-it project. I think there's fear. There's fear in that whole bucket, but there's also the catastrophizing fear of what could happen. So I have to stay hyper vigilant, remembering we were trained to be hyper vigilant, right? To wait for the
Yeah.
shoe to drop, even if things are going great. Like you
It
can't be
was
satisfied.
it was a selective trait that made good physicians, but not good human beings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, a selective trait, and then they trained it into us, like
Yeah.
in a time of trauma. And so a lot of the ways that we think we got this way during training, and that is a time of trauma. And so if you look at sort of trauma science, it's much harder to untrain
Yeah.
than just something your mom told you at one point. And so I think I have coached some folks who are not physicians, and they are actually, I say this with love, but much more coachable and much faster to pivot. I think because of this trauma, lack of trauma, or less trauma, and that maybe the thoughts that are getting in their way don't come from that. I mean, sometimes they do. It's not a global statement, but I think so. This idea that there's something specific about us, and fear of a bad outcome, fear if I make a mistake. So there's a huge driving factor of physicians in fear, even in like um, a fear of being left behind, and getting leadership role. I was a leadership junkie, right? So it was the fear of like, well, this is the path, and if I don't follow that prescribed path, what will happen? And so I think also most of them don't trust themselves. We were sort of trained to trust external validation. We were trained to trust the attendings or the people giving us the feedback or your chief or your chair. And so a lot of people who come for coaching really have to rebuild the trust in themselves. And I would offer that as physicians, we're eminently trustworthy humans who generally make good decisions, and usually the things we want are not bad for the world. But we are like, well, but I might make a mistake. When if you look at your history, we don't make that many mistakes. And most of the mistakes we make don't cause a problem. Occasionally they do. But our brain is very fear based, and our decision making tends to be fear based. So I think those are probably the three. The other one is just that there's a right way, like to get wherever I'm supposed to be, which is not where I am. And many people don't even know what that is. They just know that they don't like where they are,
Yeah.
and they're looking for some other place to be.
So
um,
I think if I had to summarize a lot of that, I think the underlying theme is like, probably a two, right? It's like,
yeah.
am I enough and am I loved? Like
Yes.
if they could answer those questions affirmatively, yes, based on their inner faith, inner science, inner self-worth,
Right.
they wouldn't need the external validation like you're suggesting. They wouldn't need to compare and despair. They wouldn't need to look
Yeah.
outside of themselves. The wisdom's inside.
Yeah.
But we've forgotten it. We've been brainwashed out of it. We've
I want
been
to say we didn't
yeah,
forget. They
yeah.
told us to turn it off, right?
That's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It works
So
well for the system.
yeah. So as you navigate, let's say you work with a physician in year one
Yeah.
and you work with them and you take them through 12, 18, 24 months
Yeah. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
work. Give me the sort of the milestones that you normally see a physician go through with like, perhaps realizations, aha moments, like epiphanies, like you've
Sure.
had yourself when you were, going through your training. But tell me some of the common ones, perhaps, that you see as physicians on that journey of self-discovery.
Well, what I really see is really quick epiphanies and realizations of like people say like, "Oh my God, have you read my mind?" when we start to talk about some of the ways that their brain is thinking and the ways
Mhm.
that they got here. And that power of seeing and noticing and awareness gives them just this incredible sense of lightness and hope. I think that they have more insight into how they got here, insight into how they're making their decisions, and then realistically, because we're physicians, we want to fix it really fast. And so then they have a little bit of a dip of like, how come I haven't just stopped doing all these things? And that's really where the work begins, to begin to unravel your habits and to begin to build. I really like to focus on building new habits that just sort of make some of these old ones fade away.
Mm.
In that being more efficient, but also more pleasant. And I really lean into mindfulness, both that physiologic piece and some of the practices, but also sort of philosophic approaches of mindfulness, which are patience, for example, and awareness, and
So,
trust is one of them. So they
yeah.
line up with a lot of what we just
So,
said, right?
I'm really, I'm a big believer in the meditative
Yeah.
state, mindfulness, and breath work, and all these. There's the methodologies, but the whole concept
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense as we go back to ancient wisdom that's been proven for 5,000 years, and now we're almost rediscovering it. But help me take a meditation naive, breathwork naive
Yeah.
person who has not paused and is not present. And what's the first practice you teach them or encourage them to start?
Pause. Like literally pause and breathe, pause and just sit with it, because we have an urgency bias in medicine. We're taught to just like uncertainty is not okay, so of it push ahead. And so to slow down and notice and pause and breathe, I think that pause is just to notice how often we don't pause. And I think that's really the first step of mindfulness. And remember to breathe. I think we overcomplicate it. I have to meditate for this many minutes. I encourage people to get an app, any app, because it's easy on your phone and push play. And I encourage people to do that. I find the most impactful space is in the transitions, but so between like home and work or work and home, not while you're driving ideally, but and again, low bar, like 1 minute, 5 minutes, do something,
Yeah.
because you begin to notice it's really a what you practice grows. And so you just practice, you do a little bit, a little bit. And even intention setting is a practice of mindfulness. So each day deciding, what's your purpose in the day. Maybe it's connection if you're still seeing patients. Maybe it's practicing satisfied today. Like it could be any of those things. Maybe it's peace. And then you can ask yourself along the way, like every time you're about to do something, is this going to bring me more peace or less peace, right? You won't bring up something with your spouse or your children or it can be a real helpful guide. So I think not overcomplicating it. Being in nature is a practice of mindfulness.
Mm.
If you are not listening to a podcast and exercising at the same time, right? So it's sort of walking slowly and noticing your five senses. That's mindfulness. And so I really like to think outside the box,
Mhm.
particularly because a lot of people in healthcare who don't know mindfulness, like you said, it's so hard to start, right? Because you sit there and you're just like your brain is going like a crazy person and you can't relax. And I will see people who come to retreats the first day and they'll be doing shavasana and they cannot lie still, right? They're just fidgeting and so I find that easing in slowly, shorter, ridiculously unambitious goals. And I'll be vulnerable here and say this is why I got into yoga and became a yoga teacher. I couldn't meditate, so I could do it in a group, in a class where someone was saying breathe, breathe in, breathe out, and I was able to move at the same time. Then I could drop into this meditative state and be back in my body. Now I can meditate, but I couldn't then. Like I had to go, everyone has a little crack. And I believe everyone can be mindful to some degree. You just have to find your opening.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, tell me about like, obviously you work with people, tele or on the phone
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
via Zoom, but what's the power of in-person experiences? Like we recently hosted a retreat, in Orlando, and it was just amazing for people to connect, to bond, to go deeper with each other, to get that personalized coaching. You can see the nonverbal cues.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just being around an environment of uplifting, collaborative, inspirational, setting. Uh, I know yours is more intimate and it's more has more depth because it's really for meant for fewer physicians in really a special setting.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the breakthroughs, perhaps, that you've seen on those retreats.
Yeah. Well, and you are absolutely right that the in-person experience offers breakthroughs ultimately that the, virtual coaching doesn't. I do all my coaching on Zoom because I like to see body language because when you say things, even if someone doesn't respond verbally, you can see how they're their brain and body are sort of comfortable, not comfortable. Do they just like can't sit still when you've brought up an idea? It gives you a lot of information. But in person, that energetic transference is even more powerful. And so the ability to really dial into the places that people are challenged or stuck is really powerful. And then you add in, so for me, that's the power of sort of just being able to coach someone in person. And at my retreats, I do small groups. So the most that I do at a time is 7, and everyone has a one-on-one session. So there is actually quite a lot of in-person coaching, which I love. It feeds me, and I think people love it. But I have a lot of people who've coached and then will come to a retreat, or will come to a retreat and then coach. And the other piece is being in a community with like-minded folks in a very safe, secure space where your energy balance is just being infused all day long. And then you're in nature, which automatically heals your nervous system. And so that's healing all at the same time. And then we do a lot of culinary medicine and farm to table. And that, of course,
Oh
again,
yeah,
adds to
that's
the
yummy.
well, it adds to the healing and the sense of nourishment. And all of that brings you this sense of like physiologic safety that allows you to have many more breakthroughs and move forward. I think it's not at all uncommon for people to go home and like give their notice or leave their spouse if they've been meaning to, for example, or just
You said
change
that's
things
it's
up.
not uncommon to
It's
see
not
that.
uncommon.
So
No, I
people
see it
make
all the
some
time.
big moves. Like
Yeah.
this is like seismic
Or
seismic moves.
yeah, seismic moves, or give up a leadership role or a part of
Yeah.
their job that it's usually not that it just came to them on the retreat. Like it's been churning in there,
Yeah,
but they
yeah,
either haven't had the courage or they haven't had the clarity.
yeah.
So I find that the in-person space really offers clarity. Part of it is also the intensiveness of it, right? You're in a space, a protected space for 4 days where you're taking care of yourself and reflecting and doing all the things together. And so all of those things, mindfulness and nutrition and sleep and coaching, like they're all synergistic, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And so that's part of the big breakthroughs. And I think what I see is that it's usually people come for a reason. There's something that's gnawing at them. And it's rare for people to go home and not do something. It doesn't mean that they're going to quit their job, but they might just have this plan. I mean, I had one client who's she has quit her job, but she's leaving, in 18 months. Like that's her speed. And that's fine because she wants to give them time to replace and time to, and so it doesn't mean that you go home and you
Yeah, yeah.
have a job the next day. But I think what in-person experiences really give people is clarity.
Yeah.
They also give a sense of community, and that's really, really powerful. And while I do a lot of group coaching on Zoom, and so you have also small group, like I don't do anything more than 10 people. You have that community because we meet over time,
Yeah.
but it's so different when you connect with those people in
Yeah.
person. And I think when you put physicians together in a not, networking conferencing setting where
Yeah.
that compare and despair comes up, really powerful things can happen. And the sense of belonging and the sense of there's nothing wrong with me, which I mentioned is like one of the things that people bring, it evaporates pretty quickly. Like
Yeah.
even the first evening, people are like, oh, I just didn't realize everyone else is. It's not that you're not unique. That's something that's always bugged me. Like I want to be unique.
Yeah.
And our lens of training and our lived experience as people who are physicians in medicine in the last 20 years or 10 years or 5 years, like there is a similarity and a shared experience that is really helpful in figuring out who you are and where you want to go from here. I also, one of the things I find so really cool about retreats is that I have had people come in their first year of practice and people who are about to retire, who have just retired, and the wisdom and enthusiasm
Yeah.
that's
The
shared both
knowledge
ways
transfer and then the
is like
the
incredible.
bonding. Yeah.
They inspire one another, honestly. And it's this, I think sometimes we all think kind of negatively about medicine, but it's actually a beautiful thing that we've all done, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
grown us, it's part of us.
It's
The
reframing it.
language
Yeah.
out here is
Yeah.
like kind of negative, and so I see it become positive again,
Yeah.
right?
Let me ask you a question, Jesse,
Yeah,
about and this is because there's so many doctors who
yeah,
would like to add or pivot from medicine as their main career. So either they want to be a coach or a consultant or an advisor or do something along those
Yeah.
lines, and sort of
Yeah.
an entrepreneurial hustle, side hustle of some
Yeah.
sort. So let's talk about the business side of coaching
Mhm.
and talk about like how did you first feel comfortable shifting out of getting paid as a physician to getting paid as a coach and attracting clients and maybe just like how did you feel because physicians are notorious for getting certifications. They get
I love your word comfortable. I was not comfortable.
yeah.
I am comfortable now.
Yeah.
But I think often people ask me that, how did you transition? And I will really say it's courage. It's just deciding that for me, it was something that and this is a double negative, but couldn't not do.
Mm.
I had done physician wellness for my organization for 18 years, and I had found coaching for myself, sort of trying to solve these internal angst problems of where am I going and why am I having all these leadership problems and not problems like role after role. I was always looking for the next role. And I was like, well, wait a minute, like, where am I headed? What am I doing with this? And what's my purpose? And I at that point also felt like, I actually love pediatrics, but I also felt like I could do it in my sleep. And I was really ready to grow in
Mm.
some different direction. But once I had done, yoga and mindfulness training and coach training, it was really clear to me with my wellness background that this was what physicians needed. And that within my organization, even though I had a really large wellness role, the amount of impact I could make was maybe 5%. And so I was just inspired by this. I have this sort of skill set and background that's ideal to go out and I won't say change the world, but a little bit of that energy. Like that's what gets you to jump. Without it, I don't think
Mm.
people jump, right? And
And this
so
was
it
after practicing about 20 years, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I had been in that job, which was my first job for 18 years, but I also did my residency and chief residency at the same place. So I had been there for 23
Yeah.
years, like which it felt like 23 years as opposed to, like when I started, I was not new. It wasn't like I was in a brand new spot,
Right.
you know. But so it was really this idea that I had this thing to offer that I couldn't not offer. And I asked myself this question, which is, what will the world miss out on if you don't do it? And I have no
Oh,
idea who said that,
that's nice.
but it has changed my life. And I actually ask myself that question still a lot.
Say it again. Say it again.
What will the world miss out on if you don't do it?
Mm.
And then I was like, oh, well, I'm going to do it. Right.
Yeah.
Like to me, that was so clear. And it was kind of like, well, what will the world miss out on if I stay where I am in my office, seeing patients all day and, working within the confines of a big system? I think the other piece, and I just, I was 50. A lot of people change when they're 50. And I felt like it wasn't, I always tell people I was not independently wealthy. It was not like if you looked at our bank accounts, it was not like, oh, this is totally fine. You have no problem. I definitely was going to have to make it work.
Mm.
That being said, I think that was helpful because I had to make it work, right? Like I knew that I had about a year runway because when you work where I worked, we had shares in the company and you had to cash out your shares when you left. So that was going to float me for 1 year, right?
Yeah.
But I will say that within 3 months, I had it going. And there's another thing that came to pass is I resigned right before COVID, but not knowing about it. And so part of it was this idea that like, oh my God, I've made a huge mistake, right? Because the whole world, like, I was like, I wish I had a job where I could do some telemedicine and I'm okay wearing a spacesuit. But the coaching lens I brought to it is like, and I don't know if you use this lens, but like once you make a decision, you make it the right decision. And so
Mm.
I leaned into that.
I
And
like
making
that.
it the right decision was not saying, oh my God, I made a big mistake. It was like, well, here I am. How can I be of service and be of help to people that need help during a time of COVID? And that lens was really what got me started. And I very quickly had a contract actually with Stanford, coaching fellows during COVID who were, this was in anesthesia where the fear was a lot
Yeah.
early on in COVID because you were intubating and all the, aerosolized
Yeah.
stuff.
Can imagine.
And that really gave me confidence. I mean, I had one-on-one clients as well, but that was the thing. If I look back and I was like, oh, well, if they'll hire me to do this, like obviously I have some skill. The other thing I brought to it, which I think is so important, is I had originally this kind of thought that like you're leaving medicine, right? And I would say I didn't leave medicine at all. In fact, I work with more physicians than ever, and I
Yes.
probably impact more patients than ever, and more as a pediatrician, like more families than ever. But it was this idea that is so powerful that your experience is coming with you. So I bring my pediatric lens to all my coaching, which many of the people I coach have children, young adults, all the things. I bring my leadership lens to it. I bring all 20 years of physician wellness. So it's like all that came with me. I didn't
Yeah.
stop the
Yeah,
doc.
it's additive. Like
Yeah,
same thing, it's also about identities. A lot of physicians feel like
yeah,
if they leave, they're not no longer a doctor. No, you're always going to be a doctor.
yeah, yeah,
That's one of your amazing identities you've been able to encompass, but you'll also learn investments. You've learned how to be a
right.
coach, you learn how to be a dad, you learn how to be entrepreneur, whatever that is that you're trying to do.
And I will say, if I just think about, yes, you mentioned certifications, and I initially was always looking for the right person to help me or the person to tell me what to do. And I definitely, I started a few things. And actually, I will say one of the reasons I think that I was in the end so successful is I actually quit a number of things early. I was like, this is not for me. Like, this is not either the energy I want to run my business or not that it's wrong, it just wasn't the right fit. And so I really tried to think about what felt right and what felt authentic and aligned so that what I was creating was unique, right? And this idea, I'm not here to help everybody, but there are lots and lots of people who can use what I want to share. And so I really did try to lean back into my own skill set. And I've written a lot of pieces actually about how, as physicians, we think we need someone to teach us business. We actually know a lot of business. Like you think you need someone to teach you sales. I sold vaccines every day, and I sold no antibiotics every day. I don't usually sell antibiotics. I sell you don't need antibiotics.
Yes,
But if
yes.
you start to think about the ways that you help people make decisions that are good for them,
Yeah.
right? I don't really want to sell or market anything. When I even think about that, I get anxious, right? But if I think about I'm helping people make choices like
Yeah.
vaccines, which
Yeah.
are something that's good or helpful for them, and this is why,
Yeah.
it's not about me if they don't choose it, then we already know these things. And I think, I worked for a big HMO, so I had zero business knowledge. Um, and so that was very scary. And I will say the things that have been the trickiest for me are, get finding an accountant that I trust and figuring out bookkeeping. And I actually, I probably should have gotten help with that earlier on, but I was really afraid of it.
Yeah.
And so just to sort of notice your blind spots, and I would say that was a blind spot. Not that I didn't do it, I just was really nervous about it. I didn't
Yeah.
feel comfortable.
Thanks for being
Yeah,
so vulnerable. I
yeah.
mean,
I was,
I
I
think it
was
really
so
speaks to everyone out there who's like wanting to do something like this. It's doable. Um, and
if a
it's
pediatrician can do it, you can do it. And I would
yeah.
say it's again, I'm going to go back to courage. It's
Yeah.
like courage and belief. And I do think this is really important, as I'm sure we're getting to the end. But so it's believing in yourself. But I'm going to be vulnerable here again. I didn't believe in myself. I kind of did. I had this idea I could do it. But if you said, like, did you really believe in yourself? I'm just going to say no. I mean, probably somewhere deep down, I was like, I'm not crazy for doing this. But I borrowed my husband and children really believed in me. And
Mm.
they actually said, like, you've been talking about this for a long time. In fact, my young adult sons were like, yeah, we just don't believe you. You're not going to do it. And I was like, oh, well, I am going to do it.
Yeah.
And they said, like, well, I don't understand what your hesitation is. Everything you've ever wanted to do, you just go do it. Like, I'm like one of those people who, sets my mind to something. And almost all your listeners are this, right? And so the thought is you can, if other people can see it, it's you can borrow their belief until you really believe in
Yeah.
yourself. And I think that it's something actually that I give away in my coaching. I'm like, you can have my belief
Yeah.
until you believe it yourself. And people give it back to me all the time. They actually send me emails and say, you can give it to someone else now. I've got my belief. I'm all set.
Yeah,
But
I paid it back. Here you go.
yeah, I just think it's really helpful to
Yeah.
understand that. I had someone actually in a group reflect on this, though. It's also important around this, which is, she decided, she just made a big pivot, and she felt like she had to get consensus in her doctor consensus way from her friends and her family.
Yeah, you don't.
Children.
The way what I tell people is, you don't need anyone to co-sign on your dreams.
Right.
It's your dreams. Go for it.
Well, so she felt bad about it because she said, well, but I've got this consensus. So I didn't really trust myself. I trusted them. And I said, well, I don't think that, because would you have done it if they hadn't said yes? Or would you go back? And she was like, oh no, I wouldn't go back. And I said, well, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like it's maybe they're giving you permission, but you're not relying on it. And that's fine if you want their permission. But if you know you're going to do it anyway, just trust yourself. We're trustworthy.
So Jesse, as we wrap up here, I want to give the listeners a chance to perhaps learn more about you, get into your ecosystem. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
The best way for them to get a hold of me is to go to my website, which is jessiemahonymd.com, and it's Jesse with an IE. It's also pauseandpresence.com, all written out.
Okay.
And then there you can find all kinds of awesome stuff. So I actually teach free yoga for physicians if you want to work on your nervous system almost every week. I've been doing it for 6 years, and it's fun.
Awesome.
So if anybody wants to join me, you can you just sign up for my email list, and then I send out the link. I do sometimes change it because I'm living a life and I'm not always available on Saturday morning, but it's usually Saturday or Sunday. Sometimes it's both. You can I have a podcast called the Healing Medicine Podcast, which I do with another physician whose name is Ni-Cheng Liang. She's a pulmonologist from San Diego, and we've been doing that for about 5 years. And then information about the retreats that I offer are there, and coaching as well. So people can find me there.
Well, thank you, Jesse. It's been an amazing conversation to go from the interior of a physician's mindset to the journey that you took, and then the courage, and then asking those powerful questions like, hey, what would the world lose if I didn't do something like that? It's really powerful. So thank you again.
If every physician asked that question, like they had an idea and it was like, what will the world miss out on? I do want to put in a plug for one more thing before I go, which I almost forgot about, which is I gave a TED Talk recently on what would love do. And it's out and you can watch it, and I love it. I just feel so attached to it. So the more people that watch it, the better. But it also gives, it reflects a bit on my transition and how you make decisions that are really challenging. And I use love as my filter, even in terms of career decisions or money decisions or relationship decisions. And so I would love it if people would check it out. You can also find it on my website, or if you search my name on YouTube, you can find it. But it's a bit of was a dream to give it, as you were talking about your dream. So if people will listen to it, I think it's pretty powerful. And at the end, I say, imagine a world where we ask this question, which is why when I said that, I was like, oh, I forgot.
Well, thank you, Jesse. It's been awesome to talk to you and converse and talk about flow state and all the beautiful things and mindfulness. So, guys, thanks again for tuning into this week's podcast episode. Thanks for supporting the channel. And until next time, be phenomenal.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Limitless MD. If you found value from this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend and let me know by leaving a review. For more information, make sure you check out the links in the show notes below, or simply visit vikramraya.com. Until next time, be phenomenal.